Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're talking about Season 3 of Cobra Kai, which I finally got around to seeing. And I gotta say, this is a terrific show. It really enhances the original Karate Kid and the two sequels that followed. It enhances the characters, it gives them a real measure of depth. And with the flashbacks and everything else, particularly the adult characters who are now closer to my age or even older, that I enjoyed seeing back then, 36 years ago, I guess now. They're given depth, but there's nuance. It's just fascinating. The kids are a colorful bunch. I'm not sure they're given the same degree of nuance, but nonetheless, I enjoy the show very much. And well, let's discuss it a little bit. So, Season 3 picks up after Season 2, and Miguel was the one that they got involved in this huge karate fight inside the high school. Very violent. And to the point that Miguel was injured and paralyzed from the waist down by Robbie. Now, Robbie is Johnny Lawrence's son. So let's backtrack a little bit. Miguel is Johnny's student and at Cobra Kai. But of course, things don't quite work out. Johnny wants to help Miguel. Miguel's not too sure about Johnny. Slowly, he's trying to rebuild his relationship with Miguel's mother. So there's some friction there, but Cobra Kai has a lot of friction going on with it. And Johnny's not sure that the direction of Cobra Kai should be headed the way that Kreese has been trying to, which is violence and aggression rule the day, and you got to beat your enemy and this sort of thing. And Johnny wants to change that. He's thrown out of Cobra Kai, Johnny, by Kreese. Kreese takes over, and a few of the students do remain with Cobra Kai. Some of the others decide to go with Miyagi-Do, which is what Daniel LaRusso decides to do in his spare time outside of running the car dealership. But the car dealership ends up having some problems, to say the least. Now, the issue is that Daniel learns that his business rival, Tom Cole, has convinced the Japanese car importer, Dojos International, I have to write these things down so I know exactly what I'm saying, to cut their business ties with Daniel. So this prompts Daniel to go to Okinawa, so we get a revisit of Okinawa, which was Mr. Miyagi's hometown, or birthplace. And this is kind of revisiting some of the characters and elements of Karate Kid Part 2. And Daniel is also doing his very best to get rid of Kreese and Cobra Kai as well, by upping the rent at that place, but you know, it doesn't exactly go as expected. Now, when he travels to Okinawa, he meets up with Tamlin Tomita, who was his girlfriend, Josen, I'm not sure how you pronounce it exactly, who had definitely sparred back in the day at the end of the climax of Karate Kid Part 2. It was a fight to the death almost for the love of a woman, but he doesn't kill Josen. But I like some of those elements. It went on for a little while, but I appreciated the fact that they decided to revisit some of those elements because it ties in with Mr. Miyagi, who still remains the soul, teetering on the edges of this entire 3 seasons of Cobra Kai. Because obviously Pat Morita is not around anymore to play Mr. Miyagi. He died in 2005. Now, the best part of this Okinawa thing is not just the sparring and all this other stuff, but at one point, Daniel meets an adult girl named Yuna, who was a little girl he saved from a typhoon, which I kind of forgot about in Karate Kid Part 2. It's kind of my least favorite of the trilogy. Part 3 is stupid, but entertaining. But anyhow. And he learns that this girl, Yuna, has become the vice president of sales for Dojos. So she gladly offers to keep the dealership's relationship with Dojos ongoing. So that's good. Now, there was a surprise in the film. After another fight scene between these kids at this, what's it called? I don't know if it was a carnival or something. between Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai, Amanda, who is Daniel LaRusso's wife, confronts Kreese, knowing that Kreese had sort of encouraged this type of thing, and as he does throughout this season. And she gives him a slap that it just was, it was just an example of how you can handle a situation where Kreese doesn't know what to do. It was really something to see. So she slaps him hard. Then there is the issue of the All Valley Championship coming back, and they don't want to, the executives or the council don't want this to come back due to the school having this enormously choreographed karate fight that took place. They said, well, there's too much violence, which I understand, and, well, you can't have a tournament. So Kreese tries to convince them, and then finally Samantha LaRusso, Daniel's daughter, convinces them, and Miguel, who had been paralyzed, look, it's better if we take it out in the tournament to fight our anguish and this ridiculous nonsense that's going on between the dojos, this competition, this sense of enemies, and instead of, make it a safe, secure place instead of out in the streets. So that was quite a scene to see. Daniel and Johnny and Kreese were sort of defeated by these two kids who decided they know what's best. They were the ones that were more affected than their senseis. However, then, there's this part of the film, the season rather, where we get the return of somebody who I, always admired and always wondered why they wrote her out of the entire trilogy. And of course, yes, it's the return of Allie with an L. Elizabeth Shue comes back to the show. And what could have been a contrivance wasn't. It really worked. She had not seen Johnny since high school, so it was interesting to hear that there was no other relationship between them in between. Now, if you recall, in season 2, Johnny, who's not used to Facebook, sends a friend request to Allie, who he finds on Facebook thanks to Daniel LaRusso, who's very much attuned to Facebook, but says, I can't be friends with her because I have a wife, etc., etc. So he sends a friend request, and, there's that comedy about, how much should I write, and so on and so forth, and he just keeps it brief. Anyway, so they meet up. And she had been living in Colorado, and she is divorced and has 2 children. But she decides to see Johnny, and it's an awkward hug, as she puts it, and so on. It was delightful to see her character because they introduced her in a way to show that Johnny, it wasn't a contrivance. Sometimes you introduce somebody, it's like a stunt role that's thrown in there just as fan service. And although many people have wanted to see the return of Allie for years, it would have felt shortchanged in the series if she was introduced even in the 3rd Karate Kid film out of nowhere, although I would have welcomed it at that time. But obviously she was not there. Robin Lively was in the 3rd Karate Kid film, and Tamlin Tomita was in the 2nd one. So why they wrote her off, I don't know the reasons behind this, but it was great to see her back. But again, it didn't feel like a contrivance. It lended some nuance to Johnny. Johnny realizes he screwed up, but they were just high school kids. And it's like she says, we were just high school kids. And they go off, and they go to the same place that she and Daniel had been to in the 1st Karate Kid film, this amusement park, and using some of the same music. And so it was nice seeing that. And she's, she feels a little cold, and he tries to, put his arm around her, and they almost kiss, but she's interrupted by a cell phone call. So it was really kind of sweet to see it. And then she ends up going to the same Oak Club that in the 1st Karate Kid film, Johnny went to with her. It's sort of reserved for people that live in, oh God, I forget the name of the town now, in California. But nonetheless, it's a wealthier part of town. And so they go, that Oak Club was a place that she had to sort of she was forced to by her parents to be there, and knew that Johnny was going to be there, because Johnny, of course, came from a wealthy stepfather who took care of him, and they lived, obviously, in a wealthier part of town. So, in that Oak Club, Daniel LaRusso is waiting for her. She's supposed to come out, Allie, that is, and then he goes through the kitchen and then runs into a waiter, and there's spaghetti sauce all over him, so on. So now she returns. It looks to me like it's the same Oak Club. I can't remember if it was the same one, but I think it is. And Daniel LaRusso is there. So as Johnny arrives, because she says, wear a suit, come and see me there, it's going to be fine. And he sees her. It's like a running gag in this show, and I just love it. I love that Johnny keeps running into Daniel LaRusso, or Daniel keeps running into Johnny. Somehow it's just like the universe is saying, hey, you two, you got to form a bond here at some point. And that is the conclusion of the show. They do form a bond. There's still issues with Robbie. I don't know if I've been saying Bobby, but Robbie, Johnny's son, doesn't really gravitate towards Daniel LaRusso anymore, doesn't necessarily gravitate towards his own father, so he gravitates, unfortunately, towards Kreese, and that's where the show ends. And finally, after a while, they decide, Johnny and Daniel, we're going to have our own dojo. Johnny tries to have his own little dojo in a park. There was some funny business about that. When he asks a guy, can I use this park between here and the trash can and have karate lessons? Sure. Now, can I get back to my family? It was very funny. So all those elements came together, and that's how the season ends. They're part of a dojo. So now I look forward to season 4. Now, what I said earlier, and I know I left out quite a few other things. There's so much in the show that these are 30-minute episodes, 10 of them. So there's a lot of material. So I can't really go through everything. But what I found interesting while watching this show, particularly after seeing Elizabeth Shue back as Allie, is that part of me just wishes that the show really was about only them. About Allie, about Johnny, about Daniel LaRusso, Kreese, Amanda, Daniel's wife. I mean, I'm not against this colorful assortment of kids. They have strong personalities, and they're all fairly memorable in their own ways. There are quite a few of them, and then, they're kind of spread out. One is that evil girl who wants to fight Samantha. I can't remember her name, so we'll leave that alone for now. And then Robbie, and then Johnny, and the relationship with this woman, Carmen, who's Miguel's mother. But I can't relate to the kids. I just can't. It's the same thing in, when I watch the original Karate Kid, I don't relate to them anymore. I see them as kids, because I was once a kid. So the nostalgia factor is really what carries it along. I mean, it's beautifully written, and Mr. Miyagi steals the show. And now Mr. Miyagi, I'm getting to the point where in another 10 years I'm going to be Mr. Miyagi's age. And I haven't even reached the point of which, these other characters, Johnny and Daniel LaRusso are in fact, a few years older than I am, especially Elizabeth Shue. So I just found myself gravitating more towards the adult characters because I'm an adult now. I'm going to be 50, so I relate to their situations. I don't have kids, but I understand because I know people who do, and this kind of parenting, especially in this day and age. And so the kids are fine, don't get me wrong, I just don't relate to them that much. I relate to the adult characters, and that's what I found interesting about this show, is that in a way, despite, for the teen audience, they got to see these younger kids. I don't know how much interest they have vested in the older characters. People from my generation will be interested in what is Daniel LaRusso up to now, or Johnny and Kreese, of course. So there is that. But that's just how I feel. It's just what I relate to. The interesting thing is that towards the end of the show, there's a flashback to Vietnam, and it has to do with Kreese, of course, and Kreese has to fight to the death between him and his own military command, I think is his sergeant. And they fight over a bridge, or not a bridge, but it's kind of like a partition, and on the bottom of this pit there are a bunch of snakes and cobras. And he decides the Americans have arrived, So there are explosions everywhere, and then the Vietnamese soldiers, they run off, the Viet Cong. And then he still decides, knowing that his girlfriend had died in a car collision, and his superior didn't tell him, he decides to stomp on the guy who's holding on. He says, well, you can help me up now because, we're good. I mean, the Viet Cong is gone. We're going to be rescued. And he decides to stomp on his hands, and he falls to death with these cobras. There's a character in there who says to him, one of the soldiers, the American soldiers, thank you for saving me, for not putting me in this situation where I could have died. And Kreese calls somebody at the end and says, hey, I got a situation here, so on and so forth. So it seemed as if he was calling Terry Silver, who, after all, Terry Silver was in The Karate Kid Part 3. And in The Karate Kid Part 3, for those of you who've obviously seen it, know that Terry says, I saved your butt in Vietnam. Although the depiction of the character is largely very different from the guy that we see in the flashback. So will the actor that played him return? I don't know. From what I understand, the actor is not interested. He's retired or is not doing it, but maybe he'll be... maybe if it's well written, he might return, unless they cast somebody else. So we'll see. And the All Valley tournament will probably take place in Season 4, so I look forward to it. I'm not somebody that, I used to really follow a lot of TV series and the episodes. Everything here is interconnected in a way. But this show is really quite good. I have to say, you got to watch it. It's addictive. You want to keep watching, and then you realize you're watching one half-hour episode after another, and usually the last episode is 40 minutes. But nonetheless, check it out. I highly recommend Cobra Kai, all 3 seasons, and I look forward to the 4th season. If these had been a series of movies, it would have been terrific. What I heard is that it's possible there will be 6 seasons. I think if they do a 5th, they will pretty much sum up everything. I don't know what else they want to do here, but we'll see. I don't know. There are a lot of characters, a lot of situations, a lot of kids, and who knows? Maybe Elizabeth Shue even returns. I mean, it would be wonderful to see her again. She was the best written role, I thought, aside from Kreese's character. I mean, everything is well written, but she was the brightest spot. She's so wonderful to watch in that role. Again, out of nostalgia, but also because it didn't feel contrived. That you kind of, I wanted to see more of her, and it was towards the tail end of season 3 rather. So, check out Cobra Kai. If you like my reviews, please subscribe to Jerry Saravia at the Movies, and click on that thing to get notifications. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.